So, if you have started playing chess and you've, let's say, played around 100 games online, offline, then it's time to widen your opening repertoire. Instead of just the regular taking out the pieces, castling, and then going from there, we need to work on our openings a little bit. So, the best way to build your repertoire is to learn attacking openings first. That way, your tactics will improve. You will get used to attacking your opponent, and your openings will become better. So, today we are going to see a very aggressive opening by white, which is called the fried liver. A very nice name. So, it's from translation, which means the king is totally fried, the king is dead. So, e4, e5, you would probably be playing e4, e5. If you are a d4 player, then this opening wouldn't come on your board, but it's still good to know that you have this option. So after knight f3, the most standard move, black would play knight c6, and now we bring out our bishop. All standard, yeah. Most opponents will play bishop c5, in which case it's the Jokopian. Then you should play c3, d4, or c3, d3, and slowly play d4 later. That is possible. Now, the fried liver is possible instead of bishop c5 if opponent plays knight f6. Here you can't play c3 because the pawn is hanging. So then you'll have to play, if you want a normal game, d3, c3, and castle. That's if you want a normal game. If you want to play an aggressive game, you've got this option, knight to g5. This is called the fried liver attack. We are attacking f7 twice with the bishop and with the knight. So black has to defend this. Queen e7 doesn't defend it, we'll still take it. So the only way for black to defend this piece is to play d5. It's sufficiently defensive because after pawn takes, knight takes, it's defended by the queen. So we're not winning anything, right? The point of this attack is if black takes with the knight, then you have a crushing blow that wins the game. The evaluation is going to go all the way up. It's almost +1 because white has a winning move. Knight takes f7. Bang. We are sacrificing our knight, but okay, if black does not take, we are anyway winning a rook. So king has to take. After king takes, you have queen f3, a fork on the knight and the king. Bishop e6, I mean, sorry, the knight can't block because it's pinned. So the only way for black to defend this knight and save the king is to play king e6. If king goes back, then you will just take the piece back with more threats, and black will probably play queen f6, and you're basically a pawn up. Clean pawn up, no problems. Comfortable position. So if black wants to hold on to the piece, he'll play king e6. Now we are a piece down, but look at the king. We should have no problems getting to this king. So here we have the main move. The only move here is knight c3. You've got to put more pressure on this pin. This is absolutely required. Now black will defend this knight. The only way is to either go knight e7 or knight b4. You've got to move the knight. If knight e7, then we can slowly build pressure by castling queen e4 and d4. We put pressure on the e pawn. Or you can instantly play d4, opening up lines towards the king. So when a king is sitting on a6, we want everything to look at the king. So d4 is that kind of a move. If black is careful, black will play c6 and we will take on e5, opening up more lines. The rook can come to d1 afterwards. And we already got how many pawns? We'll be getting 2 pawns for the piece. And the king is open. And if black takes, then we're already getting back a piece. Queen e4 check, and we're going to take on d5. So after king moves, wherever the king moves, if king moves here, it's blocking the queen. So you can directly take with the bishop over with the knight because knight's hanging. If king goes anywhere, we will take the knight. Then we have the piece back and we are up by, okay, we're not up a pawn, but we'll probably take d4. And we have a great position because king is not safe. For example, king d7, we just take. Great position, right? And we're going to castle, develop the bishop, everything is perfect. So this attack is deadly. Now, one more thing to learn is if black plays knight b4, that also defends the knight with the threat of knight c2 fork. Then You have the quiet queen e4 defending c2, or you can also do castling, inviting black to take the pawn. This might all seem a bit overwhelming at first, but it makes sense. The knight can't take because bishop takes d5. So black has to first play c6. Now we go back to our previous strategy, attacking e5. So here we can play d4. We don't need to worry about c2, it's just another pawn. If we get to the king, we're going to win material. The pawn doesn't matter. Here you can even take on e5. And that's the funny thing. If black takes this rook, then we are crashing down on d5. Just rook d1. I mean, you can also take with the knight, but better is just rook d1. More pressure. Now this will fall. So let's say pawn b5, we take here. Bishop takes d5. You can even play knight d5. So the point being knight d5, pawn takes, you have this discovered attack, winning the queen. You can also play bishop d5, and you're anyway going to crash through. Knight takes, and now queen g4 is coming. I mean, you can develop your pieces easily without problems. I mean, not bishop f4, but first queen g4. Right now, there's a threat of knight f4. So if black plays something like bishop b7, pinning your knight, then we move the queen, and then we move the knight with the check. But what if king goes to f7? Then we go queen f5. The king will get hunted down. So here after king e8, we have knight f6, winning the queen. If you want more, we can play e6. And if bishop takes, you can take back. So we are down a rook, but the king is getting crushed. So let's go back. After bishop c4, if black plays bishop c5, then we can't do this. Side lever is possible only if black plays knight f6. But half of the time opponents do this. Then we go knight g5, attack f7. Black's only moves d5. After takes, if black takes back, you go with this crushing move, knight takes f7. If king will take, then queen f3 check, and you win back the piece or get a crushing attack after d4. I mean, not d4, first knight c3, put more pressure, and then wherever the knight moves, we either play d4 immediately or castle and then play d4. So we have enough compensation and it's winning for white. Now, we also need to know what is the correct way for black to defend against fried liver. It's not winning just because we do the fried liver. Like, this is not yet a winning position. If black plays and takes and knight takes, then it's winning for it. But black should not take back. Black should play knight a. This is the only way for black to hold on to the situation. It is a pawn sacrifice because now bishop can go to b5. c6 takes, and white is a pawn up, but the bishop is hanging. And if you move the bishop somewhere normal, then h6. Knight goes back, e4. Position becomes again good for black. Like, it's comfortable for black. The pieces can come out without any problems. And it's just one pawn, and there's enough compensation. White's pieces are not developed. So that's why most people will play bishop d3 here. Then we just move the knight to d5, attacking this knight. And after knight f3, you defend the pawn. And after castling, before castling, it's important to play knight f4. Remember, black is a pawn down. So in return for that pawn, you have to have some positional compensation, and that is doubling of the pawns on the d5, blocking the bishop. So this game will go on. It's even. If you see the engine, it's 0.17. White has a tiny advantage, as always in the opening, but it's a fairly even game. Anybody could win this, like either white or black. So this is how black defends against the fried liver. And if black does not defend correctly and takes the pawn, then you win with knight takes f7. And it's such a cool line to play, this knight sacrifice, especially when we're starting out, to have this in our repertoire, to surprise our opponent, to crush our opponent.